And welcome to the Krueger Show, April 16th, 6:03 on the West Coast, 9:03 on the East Coast. Hope everybody's having a great day. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find. We're also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, marinautoglass.com. Underdog Fantasy, check that link in the description. Use the promo code KRUEG, K-R-U-E-G, and they'll match you up to your first $100. And Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles along the Monterey Peninsula. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. What's up, Raj? How are you?
Quality time with Larry, baby. We back. I'm hyped up. We got quality time back on the Niners. And we got quality time with Larry and Raj tonight. I'm feeling good, baby. Warriors.
I'm feeling good. Niners are active today. They need to move. We'll get to it in just a second. Invader 49 says, what's up, gentlemen? What's up, Invader? Good to see you. People saying, hey, Raj, 49ers _throwback says, smash that like button. Faithful and subscribe. Thank you. So, yeah, thanks to all of you for joining us on the Krug Show. And, you know, I entitled the stream, Ian Rapoport shuts down Brandon Aiyuk 49er trade rumors. And so why don't we do that? We'll share the screen right out of the chute. You had this on your IG. You shared this on X as well. This is Ian Rapoport on the NFL Network with Steve Weish on the left, and you've got David Carr in the middle. And here's a little Ian Rapoport talking Brandon Aiyuk.
Well, so I'm laughing, but it's not like that funny, right? Because it is a thing. A player unfollowing a team on social media, it doesn't mean they're never going to be friends ever again. It's not like he's not going to like any of their posts, but at least it is a message from the player, one of their star players, to the team that all is not well. And obviously, Brandon Aiyuk wants a contract extension, deserves a contract extension. I do think the Devontae Smith extension today, setting the floor essentially at $25 million per year, probably helps his case a little bit. Now, as far as the trade request, I would agree with his agent. There has been no trade request. Obviously, there have been some teams, though, who know that all is not well, know that he wants a contract extension, some receiver-needy teams who have inquired over the course of the last several months to see, could he be available? To my knowledge, the 49ers have not entertained any of those talks, but until and unless an extension gets done, that is going to persist. So we will continue to wait for Brandon Aiyuk to get paid as he so richly deserves and to see whether or not he did.
All right, that's the latest. Now, you know, the 49ers are not entertaining trade rumor or trade talks for Brandon Aiyuk is how the headline goes, but in reality, he didn't. That's not what he said. He said, to my knowledge, they're not entertaining trade offers. So they could be entertaining trade offers, Raj, just not to the knowledge of Ian Rapoport. What's your takeaway from the latest from Rapoport?
Yeah, I think that is basically what I've been saying. Like, yeah, teams are going to be calling them. Like, teams are going to probably be knocking at their door, and, you know, wide receiver needy teams. There's out there. Of course, they did the same thing with Deebo Samuel, right? They called. Whether or not the 49ers want to, you know, have those conversations or take those calls or whatever the case is, that's going to be up to them. And I don't think that they really have. And I kind of see what Rapoport's, you know, report was and hold it at face value. A lot of these other ones you got to take with a grain of salt, because over the weekend there was that source report that said, oh, he's requesting a trade, and it was this, you know, somebody that nobody ever heard of. And all of a sudden he's saying, oh, there's a trade request. People started running with the story. Then his agent, you know, quote tweeted and was like, there's no trade request. You need to get check your sources or get better sources. And then Ian Rapoport basically confirms that. So to me, having a guy like an insider like Rapoport or Schefter, when they come out there and they say what it is, I tend to agree and understand that, okay, yeah, this is the situation. Of course, people are looking into getting a good receiver like Brandon Aiyuk. Of course, they're going to do their due diligence, right? It'd be stupid not to. So you got to see what the 49ers would be willing to ask for. But according to Rapoport, they're not even entertaining those things. So I think right now it's still early. The draft is the focus for the 49ers. I really don't think they're even worried about this contract situation where, you had Devonta Smith kind of set the market. I think that gives Ayuk a little bit of leverage in this situation. And then in a couple of weeks or months, there's the Justin Jefferson situation, CeeDee Lamb. Those are also going to dictate the market. Same thing happened with Debo. I mean, to me, it's copy paste. He unfollowed the team, and all the people were trying to jump and say, "Oh well, he's going to request a trade," and he finally did. Like, I think Ayuk may eventually request a trade, but maybe closer to the draft, maybe next week. We'll see. But I'm not really worried about Ayuk not coming back to the Niners. I'm really not.
Why are you not worried? Because you think he is, or you don't care either way, or you don't think it's they can replace him easily. I mean, what it's interesting because I'm watching on Niners Nation. Kyle Posey has an article. It says Rapoport 49ers are telling receiver needy teams Brandon Aiyuk isn't available. Well, that's a different isn't that a different report? Is he available? Is he not available? He's doing all the right things. In fact, he, showed up to the non-mandatory beginning of phase 1 of the offseason program. So it's not like he's a holdout, but there's a lot of people that feel that if he doesn't get paid, he will be a holdout this summer.
Yeah, and of course, I think people are going to report that. That's the media's job to sit there and, write the story and cause some doubt, maybe. If he doesn't report, of course, there's a doubt of, oh my God, is he going to play? He doesn't want to play on his 5th-year option, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely that talk. But to me, why I'm not worried is I've seen the Niners go through this every single year, Larry. Aside from the Defoe situation, I feel like they've pretty much had a good track record. Lynch said it, and I agree with them. And I think, though, it's just a matter of time. Like, Nick Bosa, they didn't pay him early. They waited, and it kind of got to the midnight hour. But if they took the time and they got Bosa back, your best player on your team, I don't think they're gonna mess around and not pay Brandon Ayuk. I think there's gonna be, some negotiations, and that kind of stuff is uncomfortable for people. When people talk about their money, they're serious and they want to make sure they get what they feel is deserved. And then the front office, their job is to make sure they budget it and pay a price that they feel is fair for that compensation of that player. So it's going to go back and forth. I'm really not worried. Again, it's maybe because we've seen the same thing go down with Debo Samuel. I'm not worried. And of course, there's going to be it's the same reports that we saw, 2 years back with Debo. And that's why I'm not really too concerned, honestly.
Is it a good deal for the Niners to wait? I mean, Bosa signed 5 days before week 1. Didn't have a great year, had an okay year. Didn't have the equivalent year that he had the year prior. Is it a good idea for the Niners to handle Ayuk the same way they handled Bosa and eventually get it done, but get it done so late that he misses a big chunk of the preseason and he's not necessarily ready to roll, and he's kind of I don't want to say compromised, but he hasn't had a training camp. How do you think they're going to play their hand?
That's a good question. And to me, that's the one difference. I hope they do kind of get this done a little bit earlier in terms of, when he can come in and at least get into training camp. Because if they let this hold into training camp, that's never a good thing, because even Bosa admitted that he was definitely rusty when he started. He wishes he had those reps with the team and in terms of training camp reps and everything. Preseason, most of those guys don't play much, but they'll get one game at least under their foot, and it's good conditioning for them. But, right now, like you said, Ayuk's there. He did the voluntary day 1 off-season workout. He was there for that. Good news on that end. He's been working out. He's been training. Obviously, these players are pro athletes. They got to train. So he's going to keep in shape. But I do hope that it doesn't trickle into the training camp too much, because Brandon Aiyuk, when he's in training camp, he's like a different player. He's an animal. When he's in training camp, Ayuk, he always dominate. And I want to see that, because I feel like when he does go into training camp and he kind of dominates, it kind of trickles into the season. And that's kind of what I want to see out of Ayuk again. Big money contract. I feel a lot of players, they don't always have a successful, season after the big money. I get it. They don't want to overtrain, because there's a risk of injury. If they get hurt, they're not going to be able on the field to earn that money. So I see where they're coming from, but I do hope the 49ers don't let this trickle into, the training camp. I hope it's more like Kittle, where I know it was, touch and go. I know it was a tough situation. The contract negotiation was rough. Like, I remember reading about that, but they got it done well, like maybe a couple days before training camp started, and he didn't miss a beat there. So I feel like that's where I wanted to go. Yeah, I know it's going to take some time, but maybe give it a week before training camp, knock it out. There's no issues, there's no drama. Come into training camp without any issues. Because also, 49ers coming off a Super Bowl loss. I don't want any damn drama coming into this season, Larry. I don't want any issues. I need them to be so focused that they can get back to the Super Bowl.
There's a quote on 49er Web Zone from John Lynch who says, it says, while there have been trade rumors this offseason, the 49ers have denied that any serious discussions have taken place. At least that was the case last month. And they quote Lynch as saying, "I promise you nothing's going on there." So if you're a betting man, are you betting that it all gets done, or are you betting that they make a move?
I'm a betting man. I'm putting all my chips in. I'm all in that it's getting done, Larry. It's gonna happen. They're gonna get it done. I'm going all in, baby. All in. Full house.
All in.
All in. Yeah.
Okay. It was interesting. Cam Inman, went and saw Brock Purdy over the weekend at the little kids. They had a little camp, and Purdy gave him a quote, and the quote didn't sound very promising. It was like, "I thank Brandon for everything he's helped me with." It sounded like, it didn't sound like he was coming back. It sounded like he was saying, like, "Hey, I appreciate what the guy's done for me. Like, I may never see him again." I don't know. Did you see that quote at all?
Yeah, I read his article. I read Cam. I always read Cam stuff. I love Cam, man. He always has good stuff. So I read it. And, of course, the players never know what's going to happen in the offseason. They're not always told. And they got to respect the contract process. And that's what Brock said. I think it was another interview this week. He's been all over. Brock's Mr. Media guy now. He's getting all the big questions. And I can't remember. I don't know if it was Cam Inman's report or somewhere he said, I respect I respect Brandon Aiyuk and whatever he's going through. That's his contract. I can't speak on that, but whatever happens, I just hope that the time we've had, is special, but I hope that we can continue it. So again, I think a lot of these players, they don't want to assume anything because they don't know, they don't know if the players are going to be back. Like last year, same thing happened with Nick Bosa. The players were like, we assume he's coming back, but we don't know. We're going to let him handle that contract situation. I remember Fred Warner was speaking on it about Bosa, and he's like, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen, but, I respect Bosa. I hope he's back. And, the front office, they're going to handle this with Aiyuk. They're going to let the team know when everything needs to be known. So, yeah, maybe Brock Purdy feels like there is a chance for him not to come back because he doesn't know. We don't know. Like, there definitely is a chance that BA doesn't come back, but I think that's just a small percentage. I definitely think the 49ers, when they say they are prioritizing Aiyuk and they do want him back and they love him and all that stuff, I really feel that they're sincere on that. And I know, again, I think the one blemish on John Lynch's record with this is the DeForest Buckner situation. And a lot of people, sometimes they go back to that and say, well, it's not always the case. It's not always the case. But all the other instances, you look at the Debo, you look at the Kittle, you look at the Warner, you look at the Bosa, man, all those big contracts, they got it done. And Trent Williams, they had to pony up more money than the Chiefs, and they made sure they got it done at the midnight hour. Like that was, late at night, breaking news at 1:00. So they typically get the job done, but the default blemish has really salted a lot of people, I think.
Well, I just think people are looking at it going, okay, so you're going to pay Purdy a ton of money and somebody's going to have to go that Niner fans don't want to see go. And this, the thing about Aiyuk, kind of like Buckner had value in the trade market. Aiyuk has value in the trade market. I think people are looking at the two and saying, drawing that easy comparison and saying, well, they move Buckner. Are they going to move Aiyuk? And I don't know if we're going to get the answer. I feel like I can't see them moving him after the draft. To me, it would be a day one of the draft kind of a situation, or after day one of the draft. Maybe if some team offered multiple twos, somebody said, well, what about Washington? They have like the 36th and the 40th pick with maybe Peters, who knows him well. They got tons of cap room. Would he offer those 2 high seconds? Would the Niners bite if he did? I don't know. If Peters offered 2 high seconds, would you bite on that, or would you say, no, you know what, I'll deal with the cap situation in the offseason and I'll keep Aiyuk?
I mean, that's probably the best option you're going to get, because I don't think any other team is going to offer a first. The only team maybe with the big wide receiver need would be the Bills, and I think they're at like 26, 28, somewhere
28,
around there.
yeah.
Yeah, 28. But they don't have the cap space, Larry. And the only team really that has the cap space that can offer some type of value that the 49ers would be like, okay, would be Washington, because they got a lot of cap space. You said you got those 2 second-round picks. I mean, ultimately, I don't think the 49ers would, because I just don't think you could come in and get a wide receiver that's going to be as polished as Brandon Aiyuk in every aspect, not just the receiving game, not just the route running game, but his blocking is something that Kyle Shanahan loves on this team. Like, that is something you can't really train on a lot of these guys. And again, the 49ers value Aiyuk more than just the receiving aspect of the game. It's that blocking. So I don't think ultimately they would do it. I think, of course, they're going to listen. They're going to hear the calls. And I do agree with you in terms of, if they are going to trade him, it's going to be closer to the draft or on day 1 of draft. It's similar, again, same thing as Debo. As we got closer, there were so many rumors. I anticipate next week is going to be chock full of a lot of smoke and a lot of rumors regarding Brandon Aiyuk. I feel like I'm preparing myself for that, because that's exactly what happened with Debo. And I remember day 1 of the draft, there were so many, the Jets are closing in. Will they pull the trigger? And after the draft ended, it was like, boom, Debo Samuel's still on the roster. And then nothing happened after that. So I do agree. If there is anything that is going to happen in the next couple of weeks with Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to happen by next Thursday. And if it doesn't, if it passes without a trade, we got a long off season to wait till he gets paid. That's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes no sense that you would trade your number 1 receiver in a year where you're competing for a Super Bowl. But they also have to pay Brock Purdy a shit ton of money, and they can't trade Debo. They can't trade a lot of these guys. They're not. There's nobody's going to give you anything for them.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder: are they going to get creative and try to move Aiyuk because he is tradable? Joe Muzzy says Larry is praying for a Brandon Aiyuk trade. It's kind of funny how he won't let this go. It's just that it's the story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how many people last year were Larry? Joe, you're so fucking tired. Larry's begging for a Trey Lance trade. Larry wasn't begging for a Trey Lance trade. Larry was just covering the story and noticing that Trey Lance, they were clearly on that path, and people kept you're wishing for a Trey Lance trade. No, I was covering the story. You're wishing for a Brandon Aiyuk trade. No, I'm just covering the story. And there's a lot there. And it wouldn't be, if you moved off of Aiyuk and decided you wanted to replace him, you could do you're not going to get Aiyuk per se, but you could get a Tyler Boyd and a second round or a first round receiver that you like, and it wouldn't be Aiyuk, but it would be, pretty close, and you'd save all the money. Yeah. So it's not like what are you talking about? You're gonna pay your quarterback $50 million, Joe. Yeah. Somebody's gonna have to go. So if it's not Aiyuk, it's going to be Kittle. If it's not Kittle, it's going to be Trent. If it's not Trent, this idea that it would just be Debo next year. Okay, you're going to kick that can down the road for another year. How are you going to make all the pieces fit together? That's what we're covering. That's why we're talking about it. I'm not wishing for an Aiyuk trade. I like Aiyuk. I want to see the Niners win. I'm wishing for the Niners to win the Super Bowl, and looking at their cap situation going, you're going to pay a quarterback $50 million, and you're still going to pay you're going to have $60 million of receivers on your team, and you were dead last in the NFL in pass attempts. So I'm just covering the story, buddy. I'm not wishing for Brandon Aiyuk to be traded, but think up whatever you want. All right, we got a couple supers here. We got this one from Kless Limperia. What's up, Krueger and Raj? Do you think the 49ers will draft someone no one has talked about? They love to bring in guys they never draft, it seems. Well, I mean, everybody brings in guys they never draft. Teams bring in 30 guys. to their facility and meet with a bunch more. So that's part of the deal. You do your due diligence. Some of your due diligence says, you know what? We met with them. We didn't like him, so we didn't draft him. So every report that they're meeting with a guy, everybody assumes, oh, they love that guy.
Yeah.
They may be meeting with him and deciding that they don't love him, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the purpose of these meetings, is to get to know the prospects better? So what do you think, Raj? If you were a betting man today, who are they taking at 31?
So
we don't know who's going to be there, but who do you think they would take at 31 if you were a betting man?
Yeah, so a couple things. I'll answer that, and then he called me Roger Root. So yeah, I like it. Roger Root. Is that the new nickname, Roger Root?
What up, Krugster and Roger Root? I didn't want to insult you with the Roger Root.
Good. I like it. It's good. We're good. With my old age, I don't mind it. So I got a birthday coming next week, so I'm getting older, man.
Should we call you Roger Root from now on?
If we want to roll with it, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. So a couple things on that. Yeah, so the 49ers always meet with tons of draft prospects. And of course, sometimes a lot of it's smoke, and sometimes it's just to throw people off. And sometimes you're right. It's just more to also gauge their interest on a player, because you got to know if the character's right. Remember Reuben Foster? Guy was such a talented player, can't miss prospect. But the intangibles, there was a lot of red flags there, and maybe they didn't do their homework as much, and they just
love this player, but our scouts say he's an absolute lunatic.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring him in and decide for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be something like that.
Something like that. And I was reading into it. I think Matt Barrows tweeted something, or maybe it's Ari Myrov. They both tweeted about something. How Adam Peters has this big event where he gets all the draftees or all the people that he wants to kind of interview and have these pre-draft visits with, and he pulls them all into the stadium. He actually did that when he was with the 49ers, and they're doing it with Washington. So that's kind of what the 49ers do. It's not like most teams where they do one-on-ones. Okay, you come in, we'll talk to you. They have like this draft candidate party. They all get all the top 30 visit people. They come in and they see how they all interact with each other. I thought that was really cool, because you can really gauge how someone is when they're in a group, and you're not always one-on-one with like John Lynch. They see how they're interacting with other people, seeing their professionalism and things like that. So yeah, definitely 49ers are going to probably draft someone that's not even on anyone's radar. They do it a lot. Like the year when they drafted Mike McGlinchey, I was like, what? Where is this coming from? I looked at every prospect except him, but if I had to gun to my head.
Yeah. Gun to your head.
I think the 49ers after this weekend, and maybe they're throwing my smoke at me, they met with or they stayed after Washington's pro day, and they were meeting with Roger Rosengarten, I think, from the tackle from Washington.
Right.
I think he kind of fits the system for the Niners. He's a fast, athletic tackle. He runs a 4.29 40. The guy's probably the quickest tackle in the draft. And
5.4. He doesn't run a 4.29.
I think it was. Let me see.
No, it can't be.
It was pretty insane. Like
he's a tackle who runs a 4.29. No, he's got to be a 5.29.
Let me see.
It's got to be a 5.29.
4.92. Sorry, 4.92.
4.92. Okay.
That's pretty good for a tackle.
Yeah.
I had the numbers right, but
the
that's a big difference.
If you got a tackle who runs a 4.29, I got to see that.
Sorry, 4.92. It's a little different than 4.29, but still.
But that's a good time for a tackle.
It's a good time. And Kyle loves his athletic tackles. He was mentored by Joe Staley. I feel like the pieces are there. Maybe Joe's in Kyle's ear. Hey, yo, go get this guy. Go get this guy. Go get Roger. I don't know. I feel like that's probably gun to my head. That's who the Niners are.
Roger Rosengarten.
Yeah.
Well, that's who Kuiper picked.
Yeah.
That's who Kuiper mocked to them. And he had some connection to Christian McCaffrey's dad.
Yeah.
There was some connection there, like McCaffrey's dad coached him or something like that.
Yeah, there was a connection with the McCaffrey. So, come on, man. It just seems like a Niner pick. You know what I mean? It just seems like the stars are written for
That's
Roger
a good guess. That's it. So you're going Roger Rosengarten.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Michael Hall. I was saying that to Grant the other day. They worked him out. He ran 4.76. They always go D-line. I know they got Jordan Elliott, and I know they got Malik Collins, but I just think that those guys are not necessarily the same caliber. I think Michael Hall might be a second round pick, and maybe they could get Michael Hall in the second round. But I just think that he kind of reminds me a little bit of Bryant Young in that super fast, super productive, led all of the defensive tackles and pass rush win rate.
Wow.
He's a pass rusher. He's a beast. Michael Hall, they go defensive tackle an awful lot, but that would be my guess. If I were sitting here on the a week or two before the draft, I'll guess Michael Hall. They'll go D line again and find an offensive lineman somewhere else. But maybe Rosengarten also. I mean, Hall and Rosengarten, you could argue both could be around in the second round.
Possible. It's possible. Now,
so maybe they'll get both.
It's possible because they did get rid of Armstead, and maybe they want to get like a premier tackle to take that spot. I don't know. Although I know if the 49ers do draft a defensive lineman later, I think they're going to be, oh man, the fan base is probably going to riot. At this point, taking another defensive lineman, I don't think it's a bad guess, man. I think it's definitely on par. The 49ers, sometimes I feel like if they can't pull the trigger and they're like, oh, I don't know if we want this guy, screw it, just get the D lineman. It's always the safe pick for them to take the D lineman. Going back to Rosengartner, so I looked it up. So he spent time with he played for Ed McCaffrey at Valor Christian in Colorado, where he was the number 2 recruit in his high school class. So he has a connection with the McCaffrey. So I don't know. That's my guess.
Will the Niners draft Luke McCaffrey in this draft? That's kind of another, it's not really a day 1 or day 2 thing, but it's probably more of a day 3 question. 49ers _throwback says, I'm all in for it. Hopefully Kyle is watching this and we can put in some zone read and have some more run plays. Nick Bosa is a beast. Brock Purdy. So
did you watch the Pat McAfee show today with Brock Purdy?
I saw where Purdy was asked about the criticism, and he was just like, does anybody handle criticism better than Brock Purdy? And I loved how McAfee was like, hey man, what did they say? He's a system quarterback or whatever his line was. And then he's a check down king, but then you led the nation and you led the NFL in yards per attempt. And they had a nice little laugh about that because obviously if you lead the NFL in yards per attempt, you're not a check down king. And, so, but I loved what Purdy said because it's like, it obviously doesn't affect him. He's like, you know what? I know where I stand. I know who I am. I know how my teammates feel about me. He basically said I compartmentalize and, it's all about just, playing the game and moving your team down the field. And I worry about what the coaches say and what Kyle says and Lynch and the players. And I don't worry about the Krug show. I'm not worried about the media. I'm not worried about the fans. I'm not worried about any of that. I'm just kind of, and in a way, I feel like this guy should almost teach a class on how to deal with the media, Raj, because it's like he hears it motivates him, but he doesn't get distracted by it or bothered by it or bitter by it. He's not bitter at all.
And then he's just laughing at all the idiots because at the end of the day, he makes them look silly. My favorite line during that whole thing is when he said, turn on the film and there's plays being made. I was like, that was the bar right there.
And it was like, wow. Somebody's quarterbacking this. And didn't he say something like, and somebody's playing quarterback? I love that one too. It's like, the plays are being made and, somebody's at quarterback or something like that. It's like, dude, at this point, you know what? The Niners are an iconic franchise. Yeah. The Niners have a huge media following. The Niners have a huge fan following. When you have a huge media following and you have a huge fan following, there's going to be casuals. And when you have casuals, you're going to have idiotic comments. And you know what? You could sit there and bang your head against the wall, or you could just roll with it. And he just rolls with it. So I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it, man. You're right. He should teach a class, man, on like haterism 101 or something.
Yeah,
it's
how to
amazing.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Because he deals with it so incredibly. The story of the day, Trent Taylor is a Niner. What'd you think of that? That's kind of an interesting, former Niner draft choice. He's not fast. He's not big, but he's a very dependable return man. What'd you think of the signing?
That's what it is, return man. They needed a guy that could come in at least compete for the spot, right? Ray McLeod, he went and signed with Atlanta. You got Ronnie Bell, who didn't really showcase too much as a return man. And then you had Danny Gray, who got hurt trying to be a return man last year. So you needed a guy. They changed the kick return rules. This is a guy that during his time with the Niners, he was oft injured, but when he left, very reliable guy for the Bengals and the Bears. And you know what? George Kittle is probably the happiest man on earth. This is his buddy, his best friend. They were drafted together. They were roommates their rookie season. Quality time, baby, is back. I mean, I'm not like over the moon going, oh my God, Trent Taylor, he's the best. But I think it's a solid move, and it gives them a little bit more depth and versatility going into the draft. They've really nailed all their needs and added a lot of solid veterans to their team. And again, it's a guy that's familiar with Kyle Shanahan. You don't have to reteach him, explain everything to him. He knows how to play in Shanahan's system. And again, I think for Kittle, this is great to keep him happy. A guy that he's been on the team for a long time. Bring back his buddy, and I think he'll be a good return man. But again, maybe there's going to be a rookie they draft, and he could compete and give him some tutelage there. But yeah, I was happy overall with the Trent Taylor signing. One year, it's not a crazy signing, but yeah, I like it. I was happy.
Niners are visiting with Kingsley Suamateia or Aya, or I forget, from BYU. I forget the right pronunciation. And Sione Vaki.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, Vaki's going to be on the Krug show later this week. His agent says the Niners are showing a lot of interest in Vaki, who's a running back and a safety at BYU. I watched a lot of at BYU at Utah. He's a third year sophomore. He's played on both sides of the ball. He was a really good running back, but then when you watch him at safety, I like him at safety, and I think he has futures at safety. You got a thought on either one of those two guys? It sounds like they're showing interest. I know they like Vaki. I wonder how much they like the BYU kid.
I think they like them both. San Mateo is a really good prospect in terms of line, and they need more of those big, beefy guys. So I would hope they bring him in. I like his tape. But Vaki, that's interesting. A little versatile type guy. The 49ers love versatile guys, especially at that position at safety. You got to remember, they've been looking for another big-time safety to develop on this team, or maybe a veteran. They don't know what they're going to get with Talanoa Hufanga coming back this season. He does have the ACL. It's a contract year for him. So you did talk about how the 49ers have to cut a little corners next year when they bring back Brock Purdy on an extension and Brandon Aiyuk. There's a couple players that are up for contracts, right? Drake Greenlaw, Aaron Banks, and Talanoa Hufanga. Most specifically, those three guys. So if they could get a guy like that they feel comfortable might become like a Talanoa Hufanga, they can be okay with letting him go next year, right? Because he's coming off the injury. It's risky to pay him a lot of money. So that's an interesting one. I could see them taking him.
Last question. Do you think, and we're cutting it short, we got Warriors, Raj's got things going on tonight. We're cutting it short. I will stream again later tonight after Warriors Kings. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Last question, Raj, and this is kind of an interesting one, I think. Do you think the 49ers need a starter at any spot that we're not talking about? Like, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a big Niner fan. He's like, man, Niners going to go O-line or D-line in the draft. And I'm like, I don't know. And then he's like, do they need a starter anywhere? And I'm like, you know what? That's a great question. And what do you think? I mean, do they need a starter at linebacker, or is the Green Bay Devondre Campbell okay? I mean, do they need a starter at free safety, or are they okay? Do they need a starter at nickel, at the nickel corner spot, or are they okay? Do they need a starter along the offensive line or at defensive tackle? What do you think, Raj? Is there a spot? Sometimes the Niners look at their depth chart quite a bit different than we do, even though we're following it really close. So what do you think? Is there a spot that we're not really talking about where they actually may internally say, you know what? We don't need just a player. We need a starter right away. And it's kind of a little bit more urgent than maybe the fans think.
That's a good question. Because last year when after the draft and all the draft, talks and everything with Kyle Shanahan addressed the media, he says the only position he felt he needed a starter was kicker. So if you look at this roster, it's essentially the same. But you're right. Drake Greenlaw's injury is big. And I feel like linebacker, they could use a starter, but it really depends on how good, Greenlaw returns from that injury. I like Devondre Campbell, but he's no Dre Greenlaw. He can probably fill the void for a few weeks, but it's tough because you don't want to just go and grab a starter at linebacker and then put him on the back burner. And I feel like linebacker is a specific position where they have drafted well. And I think the guys they drafted last year probably could come in and spot start. So I wouldn't necessarily say linebacker because I do feel confident Greenlaw is going to come back. But again, that injury is tough, just like Hufanga, where I do think the 49ers want a starter at safety just in case. That's kind of why they were looking at, a guy like Simmons and Julian Blackman, but they didn't pull the trigger because themselves can't answer the question, do they need a starter or not? So it's a tough one to answer, Larry, because I think they do, but the injuries they have to those two specific spots are so like up in the air. They just don't know if they're going to be ready. And then the other position, absolutely right tackle. We've talked about it though. I think they need to upgrade at right tackle, and I just don't think Colton McKivit's a starting caliber because you want to upgrade that position. I would be okay with him being the swing tackle, but if they can get a guy like again Roger Rosengarten or somebody that's like can become a day one starter at right tackle, that's who I feel like they may be eyeing. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Brunny Side Up says, Larry, what happened to the shows with Kev? Kev went to Coachella last week. So that's why he missed last week. And then there was spring break, and he's in his final semester. So I'm trying to give him as much room as possible. But no, Kev, the shows are not over with Kev. He'll be on tomorrow night for our caller show. And one last thing on the way out the door, Peter Schrager loves to talk about his knowledge around the league and this and that. And he just came out with his first mock and had the Niners taking Ladd McConkey.
Wow.
What do you think about that? Will the Niners go wide receiver, Raj, and Ladd McConkey, if he's the pick? I mean, he only had 2 touchdowns. He did run in the 4.3s, but I don't know, man. I to me, he's fragile and not that productive. I don't love the Ladd McConkey idea.
Yeah, Peter Schrager, man, as much as this guy knows ball, man. He knows the game. He's
connected. He's got a lot of connections.
Very connected, and he's very connected with the Niners. And he always does his predictions. He's usually right on a lot of things. I remember they showed some statistic where the last, I think, 4 years, right as the season starts, he makes a Super Bowl prediction. He's never been wrong in like 4 years. So the guy, he knows his stuff. I'd be sick if they drafted him, Larry. I think if they draft him,
I love it,
Larry.
You'd be sick if they drafted Ladd McConkey.
If they draft him with the 31st pick, Larry, I think they trade Brandon Aiyuk. That's what it means. That's why I'm sick. I think that's what it means. Why would you draft a receiver if he? I'm sick.
Raj. Okay, here's my quick thought on it. I would be. I think Ladd McConkey is not Brandon Aiyuk.
No, he's not.
He's not Brandon Aiyuk. So I would be sick. The only thing that would make me sick, I trust in Lynch. I trust in Shanahan. The only thing that would make me sick is not if they traded Aiyuk. I'd be sick if they traded Aiyuk to the Chiefs. If you want me to just get on here and just start swearing and being rowdy and loud and unhappy, trade Brandon Aiyuk to the Chiefs, and I will absolutely erupt like Mount St. Helens.
Oh my God. I think all of us would. We'd all go live. Every content creator would be dropping every explicit word in the book.
That's Charles Haley 2.0, man.
Man. Oh my God. Please don't. If they do that, Larry, I'm gonna be so sick. I'm gonna be throwing up sick.
I'll just say that we'll end it this way. Join me tonight after Warriors Kings for another live stream. Raj, what do you got cooking next? Let's tease what you have going next?
I've been working, like I said last week. Next week, though, we'll be live pretty much every day, doing draft stuff and talking about the draft. So, not much cooking other than just staying on top of the Instagram and Twitter and everything. But next week we'll be cooking. I'm glad we're doing our show Tuesdays because it keeps me sane from all the work I have to do. But tonight we'll be cheering for the Warriors, and this weekend it's my birthday. I'll be turning 40 years old.
Look at you. Goodbye 30s.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm scared.
But you look young. That's all that matters. Here we go. We'll end the stream this way. Roger Goodell. Da-da-ding. With the 31st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Lad McConkey, wide receiver, Georgia. No!
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you ask